The airport had just, I mean, it was quite amazing. I didn't know him then, but of course I knew the airport, and the airport was like very unused, very brand new. There's a scene in my Beijing film shot at the airport because I was making a film in Beijing, which was about this sort of turning point transition of Beijing, and it was centered on the Beijing Olympics. So I was very aware, of course, of his work, and it was great that he was in the film. And then years later, so that's 2008, years later, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, I was with Tony Horowitz, who's a writer, and we were at a sort of cocktail party at Tony's house, and I was introduced to Norman, and I explained, that he was in the film. When you are very busy and you're shooting a lot of things and doing a lot of interviews and a lot of projects, you don't always remember every single thing you've done and everybody you've talked to. But Norman was like very funny about that filming. He's highly functional and lovely. It's funny because I'm sat in front of this painting, which is called the HSBC, which is my version of his building. It's from a series that I've done on Hong Kong. It's not finished yet, but it's, again, what you're seeing, what I see is this sort of like digital aftermath of like the lighting, the steps, this sort of staircase to nowhere going up the building, this sort of theater of work, which you have sort of showcased in that building. Also, the lighting and the color of the HSBC building in Hong Kong is probably one of my favorites. I think that use of, and I'm sure he must be aware of it, but the use of the public plaza at the base of the HSBC building, if you go there, and it's a scene in my ETC film from Hong Kong, you see how it's used. You see this repurposing or this use of public space, how it's designed as part of the building, even though it is the entrance to this big corporate sort of behemoth called HSBC. It actually, nobody really considers that. It's actually considered public space, and there's a huge market there on Sundays, and it's completely chaotic. And yet at night, it almost acts as a beacon for Hong Kong, And I definitely think it's changed the way how Hong Kong operates at night and how the architecture has sort of unfolded since the 80s. There is this use of electronic light. Of course, it's no longer fluorescence. That's like a dying form, but this use of LED and how a building should be lit, how a building should be a symbol, how a building should be a lure in a city is something that's very cleverly sort of thought out.